contribute to the community by creating more jobs in these underserved regions. Challenges. What are challenges that we face? Our main thing currently, and a lot of this might be manifest by the recent Ayn Rand Atlas Shrugged movie, is traditionally there are silos between public sector and private sector. And we are as much guilty of it as the other side. But the issue or the challenges that we face, and oftentimes the problems on our side, is we need to reach out to the public sector and talk to them and inform them and educate them and explain to them that in this situation, we don't have an agenda. I was talking with Robin, and there's another private sector BTOP awardee in Southern Illinois that's running into a similar problem when, if you think about it, what guy off the street knocks on your door and says, hey, I want to invest money in your community? When someone hears that, the first thing is, okay, what's the catch? What's going on? Who's going to put $300,000 or $500,000 into just a small town that no one's ever cared about? So that is one of our big challenges. Compounding on that is, as a private sector company, we have to work on the zoning and permitting side, which requires collaboration from the public sector. And it's this effort to communicate and educate is ultimately our main challenge. And finally, what's happened in the industry is, in many cases, private sector interests have built on partnering with public sector. And due to the fact that oftentimes the private sector cherry picks, there is often greater revenue potential, either through leasing revenues or right-of-way revenues or franchise agreements. And our challenge is explaining to them that, in our case, because of our requirements on the stimulus side, we can't cherry pick places and bypass areas like Governor State University. We have to build out 100%, and as a result of that, we don't have the profits to fund what private sector companies that can cherry pick can do on that angle. Examples, we are making progress. This is actually the beginnings of a collaboration between us and the gentleman from the Cook County and the South Suburban Mayors Association. And these are challenges that keep us up at night. If you look at this picture here, these green dots represent community anchors, and these blue dots represent areas that we are looking to build major points of presence. POPs is the term, fiber hubs or wireless hubs on that side. And oftentimes, as we all work in our silos, we just kind of, get to work and, get tunnel vision. And here's an example where recent collaboration is going to help, because if you look here, there's 3 or 4 community anchors on one side of the highway, and there's our POP on the other side of the highway. And luckily, we have not broken ground, and we are communicating, so we can look into potentially relocating areas to leverage shared infrastructure. But the reality of telecom is, if this ground had been broken, even though highways you might be, 5,000 feet or 2,000 feet across by the air flies, one has to recognize right-of-ways. So putting the thing on the wrong side of the highway could have meant an extra 5 miles of construction to cross it and create a huge duplication and misuse of resources. Ultimately, we're reaching out to a variety of organizations to help us achieve this goal and to partner with the anchors. Here are some examples of things that we've done. Recently, we started working with a city in Indiana. They were in the process of actually constructing a new town hall and building some assets for their public safety. One of the big challenges they had was because of the economy and budget shortfalls, the facilities they were building were not sufficient to fit their needs. And it just so happened that we stumbled into a discussion, got to talking, and now instead of them spending $100,000 to put a tower of their own in their town hall, we're going to spend $250,000, put a larger tower that we can use, and we are going to give them a lease for $1 a year on that tower in exchange for them leasing us the land for $1 a year. So in this case, it's a great win-win because the first responders from the police and fire get more capabilities. The city could save, or will end up saving, if this goes through, about $100,000 that they can rebudget towards either salaries or other infrastructure or creating new jobs. And we save money on purchasing some land and putting up things to make our lives more efficient. Other partnerships we're working with, we are in talks and hoping to work closely with Robin and his group from ICN. As things go, we had a lot of budget for fiber from 57 up by where Route 80 goes, or actually probably closer to in Cook County down to Champaign. Having ICN have a lot of fiber going in saves us having to spend anywhere from 15 to 20 bucks a foot to lay duplicate fiber. So we're really excited about that, and what that does is give us additional dollars to reinvest into the local communities. And we have a few others that we're doing. Ultimately, we are looking to leverage as many partnerships as possible. So if you are an organization or if you know people who are looking for private-public partnerships, give us a call. That's it.
We would like to now take questions from the audience. Will? The question is whether the ISPAs will stay local or not?
You're talking about the existing, somebody's in a community right now. That they
Yeah, what exists and like over the next 5 or 10 years,
that they'll stay on the network.
yeah,
that they'll continue to use. That's a really good question. I don't know that there are any guarantees that they will stay within a community. What I'm seeing very strongly is that there are companies that are committed to a community and are actually growing out of that community. What's really interesting is that, and I think this is going to happen in the city as well as in rural areas too, is you have these people who want to develop these businesses. They've been interested in providing service locally because they have an interest in it. They grew up there and they want to do that. They just can't reach that middle mile provider to offer that service. So that's what I'm seeing a lot of around the state, is that there's really not just the existing providers, which do want to expand service because now they can offer a higher level service to consumers, but also what I find most interesting is the development of these new companies that seem to have a real tie to the community. And they have not indicated that they wanted to go elsewhere. But in addition to that, we do have some providers who are landlocked, if you will, in certain parts of the state, and they've wanted to work with us to identify underserved areas and then use us to serve those areas as well. So I think there's probably, I would guess there's less danger of people leaving a community to serve another community. I think it's more likely that each community will have more options.
Yeah, I agree. Robin says that we're going to have a lot more competition, I think, even coming into some degrees. We have partners that have signed on and contributed money to this project that are ISP level people. One particular ISP we've looked at one of their backbone connections, which runs about 100 megabit from Chicago to here. He's paying around $18,000 a month. We are going to reduce that cost and give them a gigabit, and it'll be more around $2,000 a month. So right away, the company can reinvest that into jobs, into expansion, and be affordable into some of these smaller areas. So we feel that we're really targeting these smaller ISPs are really cut off by the incumbents. simply because it's a competitive environment. So when you have somebody who owns the bandwidth and you want to buy from them, and they're competing for the same territory, it becomes a very competitive area. So what we're trying to do is really break those chains and say, we're neutral. We don't care. We'll sell to an incumbent. We'll sell to a local ISP. Either way, somebody's going to get a good deal here, and because it's a government network, we're a non-for-profit. We feel that that's a sustainable rate over time for these ISPs. Now, could it someday we become more expensive than the incumbent? It's possible, but you know that's a game you play. You got to readjust your rates and be successful at the end of the day.
Just to tag on to that is that the other piece I didn't mention are municipalities. Municipalities around the state are very interested in bringing. They don't necessarily want to do it. They don't want to be an internet service provider within their community, but they're willing to do it if they're the only ones that can do it. So those will be committed to the communities. But those municipalities that are really anxious to get better service into their community really want other companies to either develop or to come in and do it. But they have a real stake in that community, providing it to the communities.
And I think going on that, the model we created for both of our projects, the sustainable part is actually on the shoulders of the government entities. So we created this network to be sustainable alone, just by the local communities, the schools, the hospitals, et cetera, your community anchor institutions. So it'll survive on that alone. We did business models with several of these communities that work for them, lower their costs, in some cases give them better services, not lower their costs, but what they need. When we bring private business on, so we've taken 48 of 148 or 144 fibers and said that is for the public sector to use. And they will maintain and help do that. That works in our pro forma. When we bring on private business, that offsets down the cost of maintenance that we're going to pay. That goes to the government. So what we see as a trend as the private business picks up, starts paying more on the fiber optic network, our government costs go down. So we think that's an important part of the model, is that we're still providing low-cost services to our, to the private sector.
We had one local ISP that invested in our project, so I'm pretty sure they're committed to stay because they've got about $500,000 invested. But all of our networks are open access because that was a requirement of all of our grants. And throughout Champaign-Urbana, we'll have close to 500 splice points throughout the community, where if you wanted to start an ISP from your garage, you're probably not more than a half a mile from one of those splice points. And it would be very easy for you to start an ISP or to run an ISP from where you are, because you can get to the ring, and once you're on the ring, you can get to the core of the network, and you can provide services to everybody. So we think it's a very ISP-friendly network, but at the same time, we're also an ISP. It wasn't our original intent to be an ISP, but in terms of crunching the numbers and seeing if this made sense to do, and looking at the fact that we're going to do fiber to the home to 2,500 low-income homes, unless we were the ISP, we couldn't guarantee that we had a service that was going to be affordable. We're going to be selling 5, maybe a 10 meg internet connection for $20 a month. And then those customers will also have a gig connection to every place in the community, their schools, churches, what have you. That's not the going market price in any of our communities at this point. But we had people tell us in some of our public hearings, they wanted the internet to be like water. They wanted it essentially to be like air. It's never going to be like air because there's always going to be some cost, but we can make it like water and make it plentiful and reasonably affordable.
Another question? Yes.
Can you okay, so my understanding of the question is, of our 18 million, what's committed to what and what's available for partnerships or for usage. So the federal award is, the federal award is 11.25 million. The state award is 700,000. Then we're putting in 6 of our own money. the allocation of things change a lot because, for example, we were going to spend almost $2 million of our Rust stuff for a long haul fiber between along the I-57 corridor. We will no longer have to spend that because Robin has a project where, you know, their aggregate is a lot more than even us, probably 10 times our award size. And that, where it was 2 million, you know, we still, you know, we might only spend 100,000 of it or something, and then we'll be paying some operating expenses. Because the truth is, we would not really need 96 strands in the ground. We're happy just probably taking a wave off one strand. Such is life. So that frees up some money that we can then go put somewhere else. In terms of what is, you know, so now on top of that, you've got $6 million in private capital of our own money, and then additional stuff that's occurred on that side. So it's kind of a moving target in terms of what we have and what we have available and things like that, because something else that just happened is in certain rural markets, we have some spectrum leasing going on where a provider is looking to talk with us about giving us some rights to help them cover these more rural territories. And because we get to use their spectrum, which has better capabilities than our spectrum, that's also going to lower our cost in some of these rural markets. So there is no, I guess, thing set in stone. I guess it's ultimately, you know, it's not, I guess as a private sector company, we move very fast, we are very flexible, and we change a lot of things given the opportunity. So to say, oh, I've got 5 million for partnerships or 2 million for partnerships or 8, it's hard to say. What we have is an ability to evaluate things, and if it makes sense and fits within our budgets and what we're planning on doing, the ability to leverage common resources to help everyone save money or be more efficient or do all those sorts of things.
We'll take one more question and then we need to break for lunch. Joe? I'm sorry.
I think the question goes to, is there coordination of all the different projects to ensure that they're working together, they're not doing a lot of duplication and that sort of thing, right? To do new applications. Yeah. The project, all the projects we've all worked together very closely through this application process. And in fact, Illinois, I've been to several conferences about these projects, and people from the federal government have come out to talk. And Illinois is looked to as a state that did that very well. So there was a lot of coordination from the top within the governor's office, working with the different partners in different applications to ensure that we were trying to cover the state as much as possible, avoiding duplication, maximizing possible resources. Rick, you just want.
And I think we have a lot of plans going forward. We interact, a lot of us, on a weekly basis. Just either, you know, how do you fill this stupid form out to what are some of our strategies going in place and forward. We've had a lot of those talks about making it one large continuous network in Illinois, not just these, 5 broken pieces, let's say, but rather one continuous autonomous network. Matter of fact, Charles Benton back here working with PCI for Connected Illinois, we are looking at to make sure that that all happens, so that when a business comes here and they need a connectivity from Cairo, Illinois to Savannah, Illinois, we can seamlessly do that in Illinois. We are also working as universities. I know U of I, SIU, all of the universities, major universities in Illinois here, have been working a lot on medical programs and distribution of medical records, imaging, collaboration, continuing education. We have some phenomenal programs out there. U of I and SIU both have great programs. We can't get it out to the rural hospitals until we get this built. So when you talk about the application layers, yes, this becomes a new sandbox for all the research institutions in Illinois.
Just give you a real practical example. Charles mentioned one that is a bigger one in terms of using ICN for backhaul, but we're working with one of the partners is Clearwave down in southern Illinois. And so we have weekly meetings with them, and last meeting we exchanged CAIs, community anchor institutions, because we realized that there were some that were more logically served by Clearwave. They had some that were more logically served by ICN, so we did that trade. I think there is a lot of coordination there. It could be more, but all the partners know each other. We've known each other for a long time, so there seems to be a good relationship. And it's going to be very important, as Herb alluded to, that these networks intersect. They'll intersect in many different places. We'll avoid duplication, but somebody that a business or a community anchor institution in one part of the state needs to reach another part of the state, will just be handing that traffic off through these networks.
One thing to add, we have an interesting distinction, or an unusual distinction, where our project is somewhat in Illinois and somewhat in Indiana. And if I were to comment, first, collaboration is generally fairly difficult because everyone has their ways, everyone does things a certain way, and it takes a lot to pull yourself away from the daily grind and look up above the forest and actually see more than the trees. That said, comparatively speaking, the level of cooperation and the efforts in Illinois we find are much better. We are trying hard, we see the other institutions trying hard, we see the state taking a very active leadership role in that. So, while I'm sure everyone can pass a mic around and talk about ways we can do things better, comparatively speaking, Illinois is doing a really good job from what our experience is on the other side of the border.
Okay, now I'd like to take this moment to thank Kate Williams for inviting me to chair the panel. I'm also wanting to thank the panelists, Charles Wu, Mr. Robin Wilson, Mike Smeltzer, and Herb Carriway for participating. And I'd like to thank all of you for coming. We're going to break now for lunch, but another round of applause for the panelists, please. Thank you.
Let's keep going and let's work on Moraine and his other anchors.
Sure, you got it. Here's a start.
Hi, sir. We met at you were at the field. Oh, thank you.
Right.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, you called me and I think I meant to call you back. I didn't know if I did. Definitely give a card or anything. Yeah, and I'll give you mine. That'd be great. Well,
Right.
Let me put my contact. Well, thank you. I have been at many events in you, of course. So, but likewise, I'm glad to meet you.
Yeah, because NIU, of course, they live this, they have involved as well with this, right, which I do a lot of work on a lot of things, right?
Any way I can help.
Track all this farm, see where it goes.
Yeah, I'd love to. Do you have a project now on your job or still? Yeah, I know. Well, should we? I'm very interested. Let's do something. Let's figure something out. Yeah, we really want to do this job. You know, because literally, I mean, we got really lucky. We actually got the right. We got a timeline to do it. And that's given us a call from the wall. So, and now we actually have a couple questions. And half of it is literally and his team showed some snap. Literally the fire department on the wrong side. We're not on the wrong side. We're on the side of the highway. And I'm indifferent whether I'm on this side or that side. But when I'm on this side, it was them. And actually,
Pop it in right now, if you want.
Yeah, the idea being that we try to get, I describe our part of the network, we try to get them out to
One of the things that the reason I was couple of one of the studies we had to do for how was this going to save the government? And they wanted us to take, they said, compared to our current budget, what we want, they converted it down to that's not right.
All right, thank you.
I'm not going to be in the pro during the next 5 months. So I have to model it.
again, we had,
Okay. Yeah, someone viewed these found off this laptop on the other side. No, they haven't yet. I just haven't plugged in. They have contact, right? Can we test it right now? I mean, I have it. Okay. I mean, so. Tell me when I can press. Can I just press play? Okay. Okay, it should be playing.
My experience with computers before Connect 11,
Okay. Okay, yeah, great. Alright, that's it. Okay. Great, thank you.
You adopted it. Thanks, Mark.
See. Live screen at Digital Bridge, I don't know what that is. Oh no, that is on YouTube as well.
I don't know about that.
Downloading video off this camera, but everything else will be fine. The other camera has, yeah.